Okay, so I can totally dress up as Kingpin for Halloween. All I have to do is this. Hey guys, welcome back to the Higher Volume. I'm Josh. Today we're going to be talking about Spider-Man, specifically the influence he's had on me, had on my life. But before we get into that, let's go into some of the history. So let's start off with the origins of Spider-Man. Spider-Man was created in 1963 by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. He first starred, or actually first appeared, in the comic Amazing Fantasy 15. After that, he soon followed with his own series, The Amazing Spider-Man, the same year. Spider-Man has these superpowers: wall crawling, super agility, and super strength, along with spider senses, which came later. He does not actually have any web fluids coming out of his body. Instead, he actually had to make those from tech. So, before we get more into it, let's talk about Amazing Fantasy 15. In Amazing Fantasy 15, we usually get our stereotypical origins of a superhero, and in that one we show Peter Parker. He gets bit by a radioactive spider, and he gets sick, and then afterwards he gets these spider powers, super strength, and all that. He doesn't know what's going on, and he starts freaking out. Well, the story goes is that basically he uses these superpowers for money, financial reasons. He goes into a wrestling arena, goes to be on television, and he gets super popular, known as Spider-Man. But he's using these for all the wrong reasons. Instead of hero reasons, financial reasons. And at that, it's the cost of Uncle Ben's life. Uncle Ben ends up dying because of his poor actions, and now he feels guilty about it. In the issue, he goes after the robber, the guy who killed Uncle Ben, and finds out that it was the guy he let go previously. The comic ends with him in a very sad, like, non-dramatic ending, not dynamic. You know, most heroes, when they have their first appearance and their origins, is usually the final panel, the final splash, is them swinging away, flying away, being so heroic. And with Spider-Man, it's not like that. The issue actually ends with him walking off in the moonlight, sad. Not your typical superhero. See, Stan Lee wanted a not so typical superhero. He wanted someone that was going to have the responsibility of a teenager along with the powers of a superhero. Merge those together and you get the famous Spider-Man, Peter Parker. And so he started off with Amazing Spider-Man 1, issue 1. And in that one, he wanted to get more money. Spider-Man was grubbing money. He wanted to get more money, so he tries to join the Fantastic Four in this issue. And the Fantastic Four is like, who the hell are you, dude? And he's like, I'm Spider-Man. You don't know who I am? And what ends up happening is Fantastic Four thinks he's an enemy. They try to fight him, and eventually they kick him out. Poor Spider-Man. Well, in that same issue, he fights his very first villain, the Chameleon. For those of you that don't know who the Chameleon is, it's a guy that can shapeshift into different people. Using all those disguises, he can go into Spider-Man, Mr. Fantastic, and it's a whole dwelling trouble for Spider-Man. After that, eventually the series grew, and it became even more famous. For those of you that don't know, is that Mary Jane isn't Spider-Man's first love interest. It was actually Gwen Stacy. That's the big love interest. And that's what kept Spider-Man, Peter Parker, essentially in character, trying to get into this relationship. But eventually, she died at the hands of Green Goblin. So after Gwen Stacy's tragic death, Peter felt that and guilt. He thought it was his fault. And, from that point on, the tone of The Amazing Spider-Man, it got more, tragic. You felt more of what Peter was going through. He tried his best every day, and yet something always happened. Eventually, Mary Jane came along in issue 50 of Amazing Spider-Man, and in that one, that is also the first appearance of Kingpin. And so with that, Mary Jane came in and changed his life up, and she's been known as the famous love interest for Peter Parker. And till now, they are doing well. They've had their ups and downs, but they're doing well. Now, on to the influences in pop culture. Spider-Man has had such a big spectrum in pop culture, from TV shows to movies. It's all been there. Most of the people don't know is that Spider-Man actually had a live-action TV show in the 70s, and that one was alright. It was a bit cheesy. He went along to do animated shows such as Spider-Man and Friends and The Amazing Spider-Man, which had The Boys. But after that, there was a hiatus with Spider-Man on the media. He was still in radio, he was still in comics, but then it came down to Sam Raimi and his famous Spider-Man trilogy. Sam Raimi brought along 3 amazing films, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. 3, not so much, but 2 being one of the pinnacle of superhero movies. And with that, Tobey Maguire played Spider-Man, and Kirsten Dunst played Mary Jane, and we had such amazing, performances by Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, and Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, and Thomas Hayden Church as Sandman, which they're all great, and that was an era that I grew up in, and that's where I really fell in love with Spider-Man. All right. So Spider-Man went to go do on more movies. They produced the Amazing Spider-Man films, and that's with Andrew Garfield. And those were not so critically acclaimed. 1 was all right, and 2 just bombed really hard. They had so many villains in that, and the story was so clustered. They didn't actually know where they were going with. TBH, there is actually a whole other planned script for Amazing Spider-Man 3, and it has to do with clones and the Clone Saga, and that's just BS. But going on after that, Sony still had the rights for Spider-Man, and the MCU, Marvel Studios, wanted those rights, and they finally had an agreement, and eventually Spider-Man from the MCU showed up in Marvel's Civil War, which is one of the best Marvel movies out there. Appeared as an incredibly casted kid. Tom Holland is great as Spider-Man and did a hell of a performance in that movie. And after that, we just had this amazing, experience with Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I personally think that Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man. After that, Tobey Maguire, and then so on and so forth. But during the year of 2018, there was a huge spark in Spider-Man. We had him in Infinity War. We had him get back as the great Peter Parker, Amazing Spider-Man in the comics. And we had Spider-Man PS4. And that is where I want to go with this video. Spider-Man PS4 saved my life. Now, what I mean by that is I was going through a really tough time last year. I went through a bit of a depression, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go or who to talk to, and I kind of closed myself off. Well, that year, around that time, Spider-Man PS4 finally showed up, and I bought it. I got my money out, and I bought the thing, and I played it. And I went days and days playing it nonstop. And it completely distracted me from what I was feeling, from every sad moment that I had in my head, from every sad thought that was going through me. Spider-Man was there for me. You see, Spider-Man has such a huge influence on me. He is my main hero. For most of you that do know me personally, I do know a lot about Batman, and I love Batman, but it doesn't affect me as much as Spider-Man. You see, Spider-Man, when Stan Lee created Spider-Man, he wanted a hero that was going to go through the trials of life. He wanted a hero that was going to get beat down but still get back up And that's Spider-Man's motto. He also had Spider-Verse in 2018. And basically that whole theme of that story is anyone can be a hero, and that no matter how many times you get hit, you got to keep getting up. You got to keep moving forward. And that's Peter Parker. And so that inspired me. When I played Spider-Man PS4, I felt the emotions behind the story. I felt Peter Parker, and I related to him. I'm not saying I have superpowers. I don't. I wish I did. But that's not the reason. The reason is because Peter Parker goes through everyday struggles the way we do. Financial struggles that I have, the struggles of relationships that I have, it's all there. And yet, no matter whatever he goes through, no matter the depression, no matter the guilt, he still learns to get back up. And Spider-Man PS4 really saved me during that time. I was playing nonstop for the longest time, hoping to distract myself. And every day felt shorter and shorter. But Spider-Man was there, and he's my hero. And I know he's fictional, he's not real. But to me, he means the world. Spider-Man means the world to me. And I can't thank Stan Lee enough for bringing such a beautiful character to life. Someone I could relate to. I don't know what I'd do without reading Spider-Man comics, without playing Spider-Man games, without watching Spider-Man movies. My biggest inspiration is Spider-Man. And that's what I have to say about that. So thank you guys for watching this video. Just a quick recommendation for those that want to get into comics or want to read more Spider-Man comics, check out Spider-Man Blue by Tim Sale. This is the comic. The story is what made me actually fall in love with Spider-Man to the core. It's my favorite Spider-Man book out there. Go to your comic shops and see if you can find it. It is such an amazing story. Also, check out Nick Spencer's run of The Amazing Spider-Man. That's currently happening right now, and it's so good. It's amazing, no pun intended. But they put Peter back in his roots, back to where it's like good old Parker luck, and that is just, it's so beautiful. So thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.